Hey everybody, it's Saturday, December 8th, and on Thursday, December 6th, I finally finished potting up all of my different fig cuttings. I have 5 varieties of figs in here, and I've been trying to figure out what exactly is the best method of rooting fig cuttings and getting them started. So I have fig cuttings from 3 different sellers here, and I tried separating them out because I had multiple cuttings in most cases, and some of them I put directly into potting mix. Some I had, most of them started out wrapped in paper towels in a Tupperware container, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of what makes fig cuttings do what they do and what is the best method to get the best percentage of successful cuttings and get them going as quickly as possible, really. And I want to break these all out by variety and by seller and get the timelines together and show you all what I'm experiencing to try to crack the code that is the mystery of the fig cutting. Okay, right here we have my first 6 cuttings that I purchased. I received these cuttings on November 2nd. As of today, that was 38 days ago. These cuttings came from one single source, Off the Beaten Path Nursery in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I have 3 different varieties here, and I decided to go with 2 of each variety. So the 2 back here are Col de Dame Noir, the 2 here are Black Madeira KK, and the 2 here are Smith. So I did 2 different things here. I started these all out wrapped in paper towels in a Tupperware container. But halfway through, I noticed some cuttings were getting more initials than others, so I moved half of them over to pots and then put them in my humidity box that I showed you earlier. So these 3 cuttings, they're one of each variety. They've been in my possession for 38 days, and they've been potted for about 2 weeks. So that means for the first 3.5 weeks or so, they were just wrapped in paper towels. These over here, these were wrapped in paper towels the entire time, and I just moved them over into pots 2 days ago. So for all intents and purposes, these just moved over. I did this Thursday night, so it hasn't even been 2 full days. And what is telling here is the difference in the overall progress of each cutting. Here you can see this Smith. I know it's pretty tough to see, but this Smith is actually getting a bud here. It's nice and green. This Smith here is getting a very tiny bud. And there is another bud underneath here. If you can see it, there's a little tiny green bud. You can compare it to this Smith that I just potted up, that it's finally starting to show signs of life. It looks like there's a little bud coming out, but there's a lot less going on. This cutting was a lot slower than this cutting. This Black Madeira KK, this one is getting nice cuttings. Root initials came out wrapped in paper towels on this one before this one did. This one is doing literally nothing at all. When I potted this up, I saw just maybe a small bump or 2 that I guess would be considered an initial. But I'm not seeing any roots in this one, and clearly there's not going to be any roots in this one because I just potted it. The Smith as well, not showing any roots. It looks like it's only just starting to wake up, and obviously there's not going to be any roots here because I just potted it. This Col de Dame Noir, this sent out initials very quickly wrapped in paper towels, but they never really grew. As you can see, I'm getting a lot of root growth in this Col de Dame Noir. This looks like a very healthy and successful cutting. This Col de Dame Noir also showed significant initialing wrapped in paper towels. Not as much as the other one on the left, but it did show some. So it's showing a bud here. It has a little growth coming out here, but again, there's not going to be any root growth here. But what is very interesting to me is that despite only seeing root growth in this one cutting, what is pretty clear to me is that potting them and moving them out to the sun triggers the buds growing. If you leave them wrapped in paper towels and you keep them in the dark like that, it seems to suppress the growth of the bud. That's the theory that I'm working on right now. Now I want to move you over to my raspberry lattes. Okay, these are my 5 raspberry latte cuttings. I purchased these off of FigBid. I received them on November 24th, so they have been in my possession for 16 days. I posted a video when I received them, and I showed you how I wrapped them up in paper towels and put them in Tupperware. So all 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these cuttings were wrapped up in wet paper towels, well, damp paper towels, initially. So I've had these for a total of 16 days. These raspberry latte cuttings started waking up immediately. Because they started waking up so quickly and I got so many initials on all of them, I decided to break these 2 off and pot them up. So I don't remember exactly when I potted these, but it's been about a week and a half. We'll say these have been potted for about 10 days. I moved them over pretty quickly. I let these sit in paper towels, and I just potted them up Thursday evening. So you can see right away that there is significantly more vegetative bud growth on the 2 that have been sitting, getting sunlight in my south-facing patio window. You can also see here this raspberry latte sent out its first root. There may even be one right there. So this one's really doing something. It's only been potted for about a week and a half. So I'm very happy with that. This raspberry latte, which was the first cutting, this cutting you can actually see the dried up root here. This started sending out roots just wrapped in paper towels pretty quickly. But I don't see any roots that have grown enough that I can see it in the actual potting medium. So this one looks to be not quite as explosive as this one, even though it rooted first. Again, since I just potted these just the other day, just on Thursday, there's not going to be any root growth here, but you can still see the roots. They haven't completely dried up yet, but these are initials that were coming out all over just from being wrapped in wet paper towels. So this raspberry latte type, you can see them here too, this raspberry latte type is extremely vigorous. I can't believe how quickly these suckers rooted. It's really quite amazing. Now I want to show you my last variety, which is Italian 258. Okay, these 3 cuttings right here are all Italian 258s. I purchased these from a seller on FigBid. I received them on the 30th of November, so I've had them in my possession for 10 days. I decided to take a different approach with these. Because the cuttings were pretty small, I decided to move these 2 over just when I got them. I moved these directly into a potting medium. I did not wrap them in wet paper towels first. The reason why I did that was they came with little green buds on top, so I figured maybe there's a chance that they'd start growing pretty quickly and starting to wake up. This one was the thickest, nicest cutting that I received, so I did wrap these. I wrapped this one in a wet paper towel, and I just potted this in on Thursday, 2 days ago. So this was in a wet paper towel for a little over 8 days. Nothing has happened with any of these cuttings yet. They haven't woken up. I didn't really even see any initialing yet when I moved them all over. I just wanted to get them all over into a bin. And it's pretty clear to see there's no root growth here. So it leads me to believe that these were in a pretty heavy state of dormancy. So what I'm going to do now is I just want to zoom out and I want to give you an overview over all the cuttings so you can see all the different signs I made collectively. Okay, here you can hopefully see all of my different cuttings as well as the dates that I received them, how many days I've had them, and how long they've been potted. So this is by no means a perfectly controlled scientific experiment that's designed to be the end-all be-all of what to do with a fig cutting, but I am developing a lot of theories here. It seems to me that budding on the cutting is directly proportional to the amount of sunlight that they get. So if you keep your cuttings in darkness or you keep them wrapped in wet paper towels, it's going to suppress bud growth. I really am starting to believe that it is the sunlight that wakes up the buds. That is not necessarily true for rooting. I'm not quite sure what triggers rooting. It's got to be a little bit of moisture, it's got to be a little bit of heat, but it seems to me that the rooting takes a little bit more time, and it's highly dependent on the variety of figs that you buy. It seems to me that Col de Dame Noir and Raspberry Latte are very, very quick and vigorous to root. It seems to me that Smith takes a long time. Italian 258, it still might be too soon to tell because I've only had them for 10 days. Black Madeira seems to be a pretty late rooting variety as well. So I'm wondering if there's any proportionality between how late the fruits are and how quickly they send out roots. Do early figs that put out figs in July and August root more quickly than later season varieties that don't make ripe fruits until September? There might be something to that. There may not be, but it seems that different varieties of figs root at different rates. I'm also starting to develop some opinions about how to root the cutting. Some people, they like the fig pop method. Some people, they use this cup method in a humidity chamber that I'm using right now. Some like to begin rooting them in just a standing glass of water or in a wet paper towel. And what I'm starting to think, based on this experiment, I'm leaning towards the smartest thing to do is to put all of your fig cuttings in a wet paper towel first to wake them up. And the reason why I'm believing that is because the wet paper towel is a very sterilized environment. Clean paper towels, clean water, clean Tupperware. You wash your fig cuttings off first. So you can wake them up in a very controlled environment with not a lot of bacteria, so they can get the root initials going very quickly in a safe and not perfectly sterile, but somewhat clean environment. It seems like they do wake up and show initials pretty quickly. However, it seems like most cuttings don't want to do anything more than show initials in the wet paper towels. I'm thinking maybe a week or so in the wet paper towels until the first initial show. Right after that, you should pot them up. I am less inclined to pot them up quickly immediately upon receiving, because dirt is dirty. There's a lot of bacteria in there, and there's a greater chance that something can rot a dormant cutting. I actually baked all of my dirt in the oven first at 300 degrees for an hour to pasteurize it, and then let it cool down before I potted everything up to kind of kill any mold or fungus spores that are in there. So this was pre-sterilized dirt. But that being said, I like the idea so far of wrapping them in paper towels, letting the initials come out, then moving them over into pots in about a week or so. I'm sure there are a lot of other methods out there. I haven't tried the fig pop method yet, and a lot of that is because I'm reluctant to root a fig in a bag and then basically take a bare root plant and try to move them over into a cup. I'm concerned about the roots being damaged in the up-potting stage. At least when they root in this pot, they will root around. They'll grow around the pot, and they'll almost become a basket that holds all of the dirt in, so it becomes easier to pot up a bound plant than it does to pull them out of a bag. You're really disturbing the roots heavily when you do that. So I've never done it before, but I suspect that there is a higher chance of losing your cutting when transplanting. Either way, there's nothing completely definitive here. I'm just giving you my thoughts based on what I've seen. I really am a believer after witnessing this that light has a lot to do with the green growth, and I think it's important not to expose them to light too quickly, because figs need a root system in order to uptake nutrients out of the soil. So basically right now, for unrooted fig cuttings, if they have lots of buds, they're sustaining that green growth with the inner leftover nutrients inside that cutting. So if your roots are not significantly developed, you have a chance of running out of the food source that's left in the cutting if the roots don't develop quick enough to sustain the leaves. I think it's pretty important to get a jump start on the rooting ahead of the bud growth, so you have the best chance of developing roots first, because that's more important than the bud growth itself. That's why I'm ultimately recommending get them started in paper towels, so it doesn't stimulate the bud growth, but it does stimulate the roots. Guys, I'm going to keep posting videos as these fig cuttings mature. I'm pretty happy with them right now. They're coming along slowly but surely. I want to see a lot more root development, but they're still pretty young. It takes months to really grow a successful plant from a cutting, so we're only in the early stages here. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I'll make sure to give you regular updates as to how everything is going, and you can follow my experiments throughout the winter. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again next time.